Okay, hello there, Year 8. Hope you're keeping well, hope you're keeping safe. This is Myth Gotham here to do your first video lesson for English for Term 5. So Term 5 English is going to be all about writing to express your viewpoint, so give your views about different issues. And they'll all be non-fiction issues, so things that could link or be applicable to real life. So when we're thinking about these issues all the way through this term, we're going to be thinking and linking back to our big questions, which hopefully will be familiar to you now, which is, as a reminder, why does society reject people who are different? Why do writers present the treatment of different groups of people, and what conclusions can be drawn from this? And what are the consequences of keeping people on the outside of society? So particularly, you'll be thinking about writing something that might answer the first and the third question, and you'll be the writer giving your opinion about different groups of people in society. So this first lesson is going to be your vocabulary lesson. So hopefully you're reasonably used to how these work now. I will be giving you some words, their definitions, example sentence, and then I'll be asking you to write a sentence giving your example of using the word. So for each one I'll be asking you to pause and to write your sentence. Okay, so let's make a start then. Okay, so writing this down then, Year 8, the first word we've got is galvanised. Galvanised is an adjective. It's used to describe somebody. So we break it down how we say it, galvanised. Okay, and you can practice having a go at saying that if you want. So what does it actually mean? It means to be so excited or worried about an issue that you want to do something about it. So you can probably have a guess from the picture what issue perhaps we might have been galvanised to do something about recently as a society. Might have been worried or particularly in this case worried about. So this links to our example then. So the world has been galvanised into reducing plastic waste due to the television programmes which have shown how much of a problem it is. Some of you may well have seen some of those, things like Planet Earth. So we've been galvanised as a society into reducing plastic waste. We've been so worried about it, we've wanted to do something about it. Okay, so then you have to answer the question, please. Have you ever been galvanised into doing something? So I'm going to give you a minute to pause the video here. So you're going to be writing down as a reminder the word, the definition, the example, and then you're going to be answering the question. Make sure when you answer the question you do it as a full sentence. So I'll give you a minute to pause the video, take as long as you need, and then you can restart the video when you're ready. Okay, so hopefully you have had a go at writing those down. So you should have written down the definition, the example, and had a go at answering the question. You can pause the video for as long as you need to do these. Okay, so some examples of things you could have written. So perhaps you've been galvanised into doing something for your family if you've been worried about them. We could argue that we've been galvanised, or the government's been galvanised at the moment into taking action over the COVID-19 outbreak. So make sure you've got that in a full sentence, something like the government has been galvanised into creating a lockdown in order to keep people safe at this time. Okay, so word number 2 is culpable. Culpable is also an adjective, so it's used to describe somebody. If we broke it down, we could break it down into culpable. It means, and you can see from the picture, to be guilty for something that you've done wrong. So here we've got a criminal in the picture. We could describe him as culpable, presumably he's committed some kind of crime that's led to him being in prison. For example, he was culpable of murder and as a result was sent to prison. So the question that you need to have a go at answering, have you ever been culpable of something? What and why? So that could be something quite serious or something not very serious at all, just anything that you've been guilty for that was the wrong thing to do. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to pause the video, just a reminder you're writing down the words, what it means, its definition, the example sentence, and then you're writing your own sentence to answer the question. So you can pause the video for as long as you need in order to do that. Okay, hopefully you've had a go at writing all of those things down. So some things you could have had, for example, you could have been culpable of getting up late when your parents asked you to get up early on a particular day. Could have been culpable for not doing your homework. Could have been culpable for, I don't know, breaking something at home. So make sure you've got that in a full sentence, like I was culpable of getting up too late when my parents had asked me to get up early. Okay, word number 3 is also an adjective. It's inspired. So if we would break that down, it would be inspired. It means to be filled with an impulse, which also means a strong desire to do something. So you can see from these pictures, these women are taking part in the race for life. I know lots of you have taken part in the race for life at school as well. So they have been inspired, or Ellie was inspired to run the race for life by her mum who has cancer. So a race for life is all about raising money for people who may be suffering from cancer. So inspired was filled with a strong impulse to do that run. Okay, so the question you need to answer then is, who is the most inspirational person in your life? How did they inspire you? So what did they make you want to do as a result of knowing them? So I'm going to give you a minute to pause the video. You can take as long as you want. You're writing down the word, the definition, the example, and then you're answering the question. Okay, hopefully you've paused the video and had a go at doing that. So examples of inspirational people could be someone you know, perhaps a parent or a teacher or a family friend. Could also be some kind of celebrity or politician that maybe has been inspirational. So let's take an example. The most inspirational person in my life is my mother, because she's encouraged me to work really hard all the way throughout my life. So that would be an example of inspirational in a full sentence. Okay, next word we've got is empowered. So empowered is quite similar to inspired. It's also an adjective. It's used to describe someone. But empowered specifically links to having power. So to feel like you have the power to do something or to change something. So the people in the picture, they look like they've been empowered to climb this mountain. They believe they have the power to do that. Getting fit made her feel empowered to climb the mountain. And a question you need to answer: have you ever felt empowered to make a change in your life or know anyone who has, and how? And remember, with any of these questions, you can make up the answer. So if there's not something that directly links to mind, you can have a go at making something up. So I'm going to give you a minute to pause the video. So you're going to write down the word empowered, what it means, the example, and then you'll have you go at answering the question. Okay, a minute to pause the video to do that. Okay, hopefully you've paused the video and you have written down those things. So let's have a think about the question, some things you perhaps could have had. Perhaps you have been empowered to take part in some kind of challenge, or perhaps to increase exercise, or you've been empowered to start a new hobby. So I might say something like, I was empowered to start painting because I felt like my teacher had given me the encouragement that I needed to make me feel like I could do it. That would be an example of using the word empowered. Okay, next word is an adjective, a reasonably easy one here, hopefully most of you know, is amused. So it means to laugh or smile by someone who is entertaining you. His jokes amused me and my friends. What have you found amusing recently? So we all need to find funny things in our lives, even when things might be stressful. So I'm going to give you a minute to pause the video then. So as a reminder, you're writing down the words, amused, what it means, the example sentence, and then you're answering the question in a full sentence. Okay, minute to pause the video to do that. All right, hopefully you've paused the video and you've had a go at doing that. So things that perhaps are amusing, watching something on television, perhaps you've watched a comedian or something on YouTube that you found amusing. So an example of that might be, I watched the comedian on television and I found his jokes amusing. Make sure you've got that answer in a full sentence. Okay, next word is also an adjective. It's introspective. So it would be worth having a go at this one because it's got quite a lot of syllables. You can see it broken down there. So introspective. So if you want, you can have a go at saying that. So it means to describe someone who's thinking and examining their own thoughts and feelings. So you see here the picture of the woman, she's kind of looking at her own face, so she's examining her own kind of ideas and feelings. So this is something that we do in our heads, or a mood we might be in when we're particularly reflective about things that might be happening in our lives. The introspective artist was always questioning his own painting skills. So introspection can sometimes also be a bad thing. If you overthink or overanalyze thoughts and feelings about things, it can cause us to doubt ourselves. So have you ever been introspective? Have you ever had a time when you have had to think and had to examine thoughts or feelings about something, or know someone who has? What were you introspective about? So I'm just going to give you a minute to pause the video, take as long as you like. You're writing down the word, the definition, the example, and then you're answering the question in a sentence. Okay, hopefully you pause the video and you've had a chance to do that. So examples you could have of introspection. Well, perhaps something's happened in your life that's caused you to evaluate your life. So I don't know, having or changing schools perhaps could have made you feel introspective. It could have been a time when you were uncertain and you were having to think about your own feelings quite a lot. The moment now might be quite an introspective time. We have to be a bit careful about overthinking how we're feeling at the moment, perhaps, because that can cause a bit of a negative spiral. So, but perhaps it is natural to be quite introspective when we're all stuck, mostly at home. Okay, next word is dubious. So dubious is also an adjective. It would describe somebody. It means to feel unsure, uncertain, or doubtful. I was dubious whether the new season of Fortnite would be better than the last one. So someone there that's quite uncertain about their favourite game. Something you've been dubious about recently is the question. So I'm going to allow you to pause the video now. You're writing down the word, definition, the example, and then something you've been dubious about recently. Alright, hopefully you've had a chance to pause the video and have a go at that. So things that we perhaps could be dubious or uncertain about. Perhaps we could be dubious about actions of someone we know. He was dubious about whether his parents were telling him the complete truth, would be an example sentence. So any example really there of something that's caused doubt or uncertainty. Right, next word is consternation. So consternation, again, that's quite a long word, so you can have a go at breaking it down. Consternation. It's a noun, so that means it's a thing. It means a sudden feeling of surprise or sudden disappointment that causes us to feel confused. So this one's best explained with an example. Discovering a spider on the ceiling left me in consternation for hours. So that would be a sudden feeling of surprise or shock there. The horrific nightmare filled the woman with consternation. So perhaps she was confused by the nightmare, or it had surprised her, perhaps as well. So consternation is not a very nice feeling to have. Okay, so has anything left you with consternation? What and why? And when you're answering this in a full sentence, be really careful about how you use the word. So it's a noun. So we normally would say in consternation or with consternation because it's a noun. So when you're writing your sentence, just be really careful to do that. So just going to give you a minute to pause the video. You're writing down the word, definition, example, and then you're answering the question. Something that's caused you to feel surprised or disappointed and confused. Right, hopefully you've had a chance to pause the video there and have a go at that. So things that might leave you in consternation, perhaps something shocking that's happened in your life or very sudden. So maybe a friend announcing that they're moving away or changing schools might cause kind of confusion or shock. So I might say something like, I was filled with consternation when my friend told me that they were suddenly having to move school. Just check your sentence there and make sure that you've got in consternation or with consternation. All right, the next word is a verb, so it's an action. It's to urge someone to do something. So if you are being urged to do something, it means you're asking people to do or to support something in a way that shows you believe it's very important. After weeks of mess, his parents urged him to tidy his room. So it's something the parent is doing or encouraging the child to do. They think it's very important. So have you been urged to do anything by your parents recently? And why did they urge you to do that thing? So I'm just going to give you a minute then to pause the video. Remember that you are writing down the words, what it means, the example sentence, and then you're having a go at answering the question. Right, so hopefully you've had a chance to pause the video there and have a go at doing that. So things perhaps you might have been urged to do by your parents, or at the moment they might be urging you perhaps to stay inside quite a lot because of the virus. They might be urging you to get involved with doing activities at home perhaps. They think that could be important to be taking part in family activities or making sure that you are doing things at home to keep you busy. So an example sentence might be, I've been urged by my parents to make sure I'm staying inside. Right, next word to have a go at is also a verb, so also an action. It's to languish. It means to continue for a long time in an unpleasant or an unwanted situation. So we can see an example of that in the picture here. The homeless man languished on the streets. I think we would all agree that homelessness is a pretty unpleasant or unwanted situation to be in. Okay, so then you've got to have a go at answering the question, who else can you think of that languishes? This is quite a tricky one, so make sure you're thinking perhaps not just people in modern times, but also perhaps people in periods of history that you might have studied, perhaps this year, who have been in particularly unpleasant or unwanted situations. So I'm just going to give you a minute to have a go at pausing the video. As a reminder, you're writing down the words, what it means, the example sentence, and then you're answering the question. All right, so hopefully you've had a go at doing that. So examples of people that have languished. I gave you a clue of perhaps thinking of people in history. So perhaps some of you came up with soldiers in the trenches or slavery. I know that you've been studying that in Year 8 this year. So an example sentence could be the slaves languished under the poor treatment of their masters, or the soldiers languished in the poor conditions of the trenches. All right, the next word is an adjective, so it tends to describe someone's view, partisan. So partisan means you strongly support one leader, group or cause over another. So you're quite one-sided in your support. So often people who are partisan means that they don't like looking at other views. So we've got an example sentence here. Because of his partisan views, he was unwilling to look at other options. You can see from the picture, we've got some supporters here of Donald Trump. So they are presumably being quite partisan here in their particular love for the leader, politician, Donald Trump. So do you know anyone that has a partisan political view, somebody that supports one leader, one group, or one cause over everything else? If you don't, again, a reminder that you can make something up here is absolutely fine. So just give you a minute to pause the video and you're writing down the words, the definition, the example, and then you're answering the question. Alright, so hopefully you've had a chance to pause the video and to have a go at doing that. So perhaps your parents might have a particular partisan view of an issue. Have you had a think about do they particularly support a politician, or have they particularly supported a particular political decision? An example of that might be thinking about Brexit, for example. A lot of people have been very partisan over Brexit. So an example sentence might be, I know someone who is very partisan over the issue of Brexit, in that they believe it's a very positive thing, ignoring all of the other potential negatives. So that could be an example. All right, the next word is imperative. It is a synonym for, so it means the same thing as very important. So we could use it to replace the word important in our work to make it more interesting when we're writing. But also it shows kind of how important something is. It's a very strong word, imperative. So it means very important or expressing a command in a forceful and confident way. Getting a good education is imperative for success as an adult. So lots of adults that you might meet, lots of teachers I'm sure would agree that education is imperative, which is why we're kind of trying to give you these video lessons, because we believe that you continuing to be educated is an imperative thing for you. So for the question, I want you to give something that is imperative to you, something that's very important in your life. So just giving you a minute to pause the video. As a reminder, you're writing down the words, what it means, the example sentence, and then you're answering the question. All right, so hopefully you've had a chance to have a go at doing that. So things that might be imperative to you, family, friends, particular pets perhaps, a particular hobby that you might have. So for example, his friends were imperative to him because they kept him happy and made sure that he was always all right. Could be an example sentence. Okay, we've got a picture here of someone who is doing the verb or the action envision, so to envision something. It comes from the word or links to the word having a vision. So if you've heard of the noun a vision, having a vision, then envision should be quite easy for you to understand. So it's to think of or picture something in your mind if you're envisioning something. I can envision a world where there are no more wars. So people often kind of imagine or try and picture that. The girl in the picture is envisioning going into space. Okay, and then what kind of world do you envision for the future? So an opportunity here to have a think and be creative here, what you might envision for the future. So take a minute to pause the video then. You're writing down the words, its definition, what it means, the example sentence, and then you're answering the question in a full sentence. Right, so hopefully you've had a chance to pause the video and have a go at doing that. So things we envision for the future, well, we might also envision a world where the environment is cleaner. Perhaps we could envision a world where people are nicer, kinder to each other. Would be some examples that you might possibly have, but you might also have others. All right, the next word is contemplate. So maybe have a go at saying this one. Break it up, contemplate. It means to think deeply or carefully about something. She contemplated her life in a peaceful setting. So we might have an example of that in the picture. Someone there, she looks like she's perhaps meditating. So if you're thinking or deeply or carefully about something, you are contemplating it. So is there anything which you have contemplated recently that you've thought carefully or particularly deeply about? So again, I give you a minute to pause the video, take as long as you want to write down the words, what it means, the example sentence, and then to answer the question. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go at doing that. So things you might have contemplated recently. Well, I know that a lot of us have contemplated about the situation which we're all in at the moment, not being able to go outside. And a lot of us, I think, are contemplating what we might do when we are finally allowed to kind of get out and get back to normality. So here's an example sentence. I contemplated what I might do with my friends when I'm able to get out of lockdown. All right, last word, year 8. So if you're with me till here, you're doing really well. It is the word to modify. It's a verb. It means to change some parts of something while not changing other parts. So we've got a picture of a car here. He modified its car so it had a faster engine. So just particularly changing a particular piece, which would help it to go quicker. And how could you modify your behaviour to be more successful in school? So while we're not at school at the moment, this is a really good opportunity to contemplate, think deeply about how you could modify your reaction to school or your behaviour in school whilst you're kind of away from school, thinking about if you might change things about how you are at school or how you react to things at school. So last one then, year 8, just taking a few minutes then to write down the words, what it means, the example sentence, and then to have a go at answering the question. All right, so hopefully you've had a chance to pause and have a go at that one. So things that you could possibly modify in school. Perhaps you might modify your behaviour so that you contribute more in class. Perhaps you might modify your behaviour by thinking about taking part in an elective. Maybe you've not done that before. Perhaps you might modify your behaviour by making sure that you complete more homework. All of these could be examples of things you might modify or attempt to change. Alright, so that's the end of our vocabulary lesson 1 for English. So hopefully for each of the words you have gone through and you have written down the word, what it means and the example, and then had a go at answering the question. Just check back through and make sure that you've written all of those as full sentences. So they should make sense if someone was going to come in and read them. If you want a challenge to add on to that, you can have a go at writing them together into a paragraph. And be aware that there'll also be a quiz to complete alongside with this on Show My Homework, having a go at these words and their definitions. So you do use the time to make sure you've revised these fully before going to do that quiz. You can replay the video to any parts that you might have missed, making sure that you pause to make sure that you've given yourself long enough for each section. So I hope you've enjoyed that first video, Year 8. We're going to be coming again next week with another video carrying on our writing to express a viewpoint topic. Next week will be all about how we can kind of link our ideas in our writing together using something called cohesive devices. So that will be next week's video. In the meantime, stay safe, make sure that you're staying inside, and take care, and I will see you again or speak to you again next week. Bye.